The views and opinions.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip. CJ, your mic.
And I'm CJ.
Oh, there we go. And
we had some conversation going on in the background here, so I just killed the mic.
we have a guest today, and we didn't talk about it Monday because we weren't aware he was going to make it today. So without further ado, I will introduce the mayor of the city of Fall River, Jasiel Correia. Welcome, Jasiel.
Thanks, Chip. How you doing?
Oh, you know, we're hanging in just like everything else.
Hello, Mr. Mayor.
You've done this before, and you know our format.
Into the lion's den.
It's kind of, well, it's not. We're not. As you know, this format's kind of to let you speak.
I meant you talking to me.
Yeah. Oh, oh yeah. Well, that could actually be very true.
No.
But
I'm kidding.
No, I know that. But obviously, you're fairly well known.
Yeah. So.
But we have no problem with you giving, if you want to make a brief opening, that's
Sure.
that's
Yeah, I'd
you know,
appreciate that.
it's up to you.
Sure.
Because you know the
Yeah.
format here, we're going to allow you to expand on things
Exactly.
and give you
Good.
as much time to talk about what you
Very
need
good.
to talk about.
All right. Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. To the people that are watching at home, I am Jasiel Correia II, your mayor, your current mayor, and I'm asking for your vote on September 17th and again on November 5th. This election really comes down to, do you want to continue to move the city forward with some of the progress that you've seen, the elimination of different fees, the increase of many, many services, whether that's police, fire, education, roads, infrastructure, new businesses. Those are all the things that we've been able to accomplish. So I think we've moved the city in the right direction based on the factual evidence that we can present today and talk about over the next couple weeks leading into September. But I would really just appreciate your support on September 17th and again on November 5th so that we can continue this great progress with myself and my team.
Okay, that's pretty good. So would you like me to ask you a question to start off, or would you, do you have any specific?
I think the important thing is maybe talk
you want to
about...
go over, go ahead.
Yeah, talk about some of the differences between myself and some of my opponents and maybe correct the record on some things because I think it's really important. And I know you two both value factual information that's well thought out, researched, and this information is at everyone's fingertips. This is all public data, public information that my opponents can look up, that I can look up, that I can ask people to put together, that I can research myself. And I think it's really important. So, you know, one of the things I want to start with, because I know both of you have talked about this for years, is about the taxes in the city, is about the fees in the city. Both you and CJ have been, you know, big proponents of reducing tax burdens, reducing fee burdens on the public, while, you know, using tax revenue, because I don't think anybody's ever said we're going to eliminate taxes. It's impossible. You can't escape death and you can't escape taxes.
That's true.
But I certainly believe that a city should manage the money that it does receive from taxpayers in the most efficient manner possible. And you kind of distill that over time. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over a long period of time with consistent government that's a good government. So what does that mean? If you look at what we've done, and I know there was a lot of complaints about it in the past, we eliminated the $120 trash fee. That was a big fee on a lot of homeowners. Number one, if you own a 3-tenement home, which so many people in Fall River do, whether it's an investment property, owner-occupied, or something like where I grew up on William Street, each floor, each apartment, each household was getting taxed $120. And I know we can split hairs and say, well, it was a fee and not a tax. All money that the city charges the public are taxes. We can call one a fee, we can call it a user fee. It's all money that's being taken from your pocket into the government's pocket. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You've been saying that for a long time.
And that's the truth. So I see a fee just like a tax. So if I can eliminate a fee, many times it's going to be better than not raising taxes or eliminating something else, because the fee in many cases is a pretty large number. So $120 per household times 3 is $360, for example. We had homeowners paying $360 for something that they previously got as part of their taxes. Now, why was trash previously part of people's taxes? 2 reasons. Number one, we had an offset, the landfill, right? We got our host fees.
Yep.
No planning back then. Landfill closes, oh no, our costs go through the roof. What are we going to do? Purple bags are implemented in 2013 and 14. So purple bags, another fee, so to speak, and that one even worse than the $120 fee because it was inconvenient. You'd go to a CVS and they'd run out of bags. You have to go to the next one, they ran out. It just was a nightmare. And then the enforcement piece was terrible. Nobody could ever crack the code in Fall River. Maybe it works in Swansea and Somerset or whatever, but I don't care about those communities as much as I care about Fall River. I'm the mayor of Fall River. So when I see this problem of purple bags, and although in concept it could have worked as a potential revenue stream and also reduction of trash collection in our recycling stream, it obviously did not work in reality. Some things work on paper and they don't work in reality. Some of those things are really big ideas, like communism doesn't work in reality, right? So, it was implemented. We tried it out, not this administration, but the Flanagan administration. And this is the administration that eliminated it. But, my opponent consistently says that I never asked the city council to eliminate it. He wants to talk about how I have not a good relationship with the council. You can't predict that. You don't know. Those people are elected as well. But this is the letter that I sent on May 8th to the city council of 2018, asking them to eliminate the purple bag ordinance. And also, if they had any questions or concerns about it, they could contact my staff. That's on May 8th. My budget went to them on May 14th, a day early. So right before the budget, I'm asking them to eliminate the ordinance in anticipation of my budget. In my budget, there were no purple bag revenue. They complained like crazy, refused to eliminate the ordinance. That's what happened with that. And then second, there was never the Durfee tax in my budget. Mr. Coogan was here talking about how at the joint city council meeting, which we were asked to provide documentation on all the city's financial obligations, all of them, whether it was debt, whether it was loans, all the different authorizations. And obviously, as you know, as you were an opponent of the way it was going to be paid for, the new Durfee High School Prop 2.5 override did pass. The debt exclusion did pass. So that is one of the authorizations. So when the council asked the city, through its first joint meeting ever of the city council and school committee, to provide documentation on all authorizations, that was one of them. But when my budget went to them in May of 14th of May, it did not have Durfee tax. It did not have purple bags. So Mr. Coogan is either confused because he doesn't understand the budgetary process, or he's just lying because the facts don't provide the information that he discussed on your show. So I think that's really important because it's a huge separator between people like Mr. Coogan and people like me and my administration. People like Mr. Coogan are going to always say, because they're public sector employees that have been there for a very long time, that's not all public sector employees are like that, because I know you've put in your years, but he has consistently said, well, I would raise the taxes maybe 2 1/4. Have you ever heard me say, I want to raise taxes, I will raise taxes, I would raise taxes? Never. I always look at ways to reduce or eliminate fees and taxes. And how do we do that? It's been very consistent, the same thing year after year. It's new revenue and it's cuts. I mean, people don't like to talk about that, but that's what it is. Mary Sahadi and myself and department heads go through and say, okay, you don't need this year. You can do without this year. Sometimes we allocate more funding, if it's police, fire, for example, in recent years, and we slim the budget down. Look at what we did with school transportation. This has been a problem for Fall River for a long, long time. The last 5-year contract was already too high at $9.3 million. We got it, we put a placeholder, 9.3. I was asked as the chairman of the school committee, Mayor, why'd you put 9.3 in? I said, well, I'm not going to tell the public, the bidders that are watching this, that we're willing to spend $1 more than we spent last year. They're bidding and they want to give us the lowest bid. So why would you say, hey, by the way, the city's willing to spend 10, 12, 13 million? No, this is what we spent last year. We're hoping to get lower than that. Mr. Coogan disagreed with that and actually questioned why I would reveal the price. And I said, basically, that's like going to the car dealership and saying, the maximum I want to spend for this car, I want to pay you $15,000 more than MSRP. You don't do that. What's your best offer? Give me your lowest price. That's what we're looking for transportation. So we were able to save from 11.9 million down to 9.9. That's a $2 million savings. But I convinced the superintendent, Mr. Pacheco, as well as the committee, to go out for only a 1 year. And the reason for that is I believe there's an additional $2 to $3 million in savings. I believe we can get the number down to 7.1 million. 7.1 from 11.9 is a huge difference, $4.8 million. That $4.8 million is approximately 60% of the stormwater fee. Stormwater fee collects $6.4 million. So if we can get $4.8 million that we were paying to school transportation companies, private contractors with their own people making money in their pocket, and we can take that important revenue that is not net school spending eligible, that does not get reimbursed by the state, and bring it to the stormwater fee and fill that gap, we can reduce the stormwater fee by $4.8 million. And then we just need about 1.8 million more. Where are we going to get the 1.8? Well, there's marijuana revenue, there's cuts. 1.8 is not a huge bill for the city anymore. When we got rid of the bags, that was $2 million a year back in the taxpayers' pockets. When we got rid of the $120 trash fee, that was $3.7 million a year back into the taxpayers' pockets. That's a lot of money. Combined, I think on average, there are 33,000 households we can do the math on. So combined, I've done the math in advance, so I'm not trying to pretend that I'm doing the math on the fly, but I've memorized it basically by this point because it's part of my job. That's literally $172 on average between bags and the trash fee, the $120 trash fee, back into every homeowner's pocket. That's serious money, $171, $172. The stormwater fee, though, is on average $171, just in one fee. So I've gotten rid of 2 fees. I want to go for the third, go for a triple, and then we're going to go for a home run. I don't know what the home run will be. We'll have to figure that out along the way. But this is the triple. It's getting rid of the stormwater fee. What other mayors couldn't do, what other mayors have promised, we are going to eliminate. That's, I think, the big difference between me and my opponent.
Well, I've got just a couple of little questions, if
Sure.
you don't mind.
Of course.
Because we will, you've talked about what your opponent said. But when it comes to the purple bags,
Sure.
obviously you were on record as being a proponent, and then you eliminated it,
Yep.
and you were on record as saying you did it for, everything is political. You made those statements.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to ask you, I think, at least to me personally, and some people that I talked to that
Yeah.
really didn't have a major problem with the bags. They had a problem with the way it was implemented. And I
Yeah.
understand you had nothing to do with the way it was ramrodded down the people's throats.
Sure.
Do you believe, do you truly believe in your heart of hearts that if this was done properly and taken a 6 month or so period to introduce it, as has been done in other communities, you think the purple bags would have worked in Fall River? And I'm not asking you to revisit this, but
I don't know.
I want to know if you think, if you had a problem with the process.
Oh, I think everyone, in hindsight's always 20/20. I think everyone in hindsight says that it was implemented very poorly. And that's because of the political nature of the situation, right? You're making people purchase a bag. You hadn't created an ordinance. And then Sam Sutter came in, created an ordinance, and then I asked to eliminate the ordinance, and the council refused to eliminate the ordinance. So the whole process was just definitely not handled correctly from the get-go, unfortunately. And again, in concept, on paper, this program looks like a great program. It generates revenue. It's a user fee, so you only pay for what you use in terms of your trash. On paper, it works out. But then when you put trash bags on the street, and you have 3-deckers, and you don't know if it's the first floor, the second floor, the third floor that put a white bag in, now things get sticky. When you have to enforce the trash ordinance across the entire city, 33,000 households, how many litter enforcement people do you hire? When you start to actually look at and say, okay, how do you scale this in a huge community like Fall River, it starts to not make a lot of sense, and obviously did not work here, which is why I eliminated it. And so I don't really want to revisit things that I've already eliminated, because they're off the table. Now my opponent says, oh, they're never coming back. He had to be pressed to give that answer. He wrote the op-ed piece that said it was a shared burden. That's his words. Mr. Coogan said the purple bags are a shared burden. The last person that said things were shared burdens in Fall River, do you remember who it was? Sam Sutter. In his speech, when he came to the city council meeting, and I was there because I was a city councilor.
He was the last, not the first.
And he said, it was the last, that's right. And he came to the city council chamber to give his State of the Union speech, State of the City speech. He said that we are all going to have to swallow a difficult pill and have a shared burden in order to continue to maintain our police and fire, et cetera. And that shared burden with his unbelievable financial team that he had put together of all these volunteers and former mayors running things by committee, which I'm also not a fan of. He decided that the big solution was going to be a shared burden of $120 trash fee. And that's what it was going to be. That is what Mr. Coogan said. He said the purple bags were a shared burden. It was only when he was pressed and after the recall, when I had already eliminated the bags, that he said, oh, well, if I was elected mayor, I'm not going to bring them back. Well, no kidding. I mean, it's already done. You're not going to step on your foot and say, oh, yeah, I'm going to bring the bags back. The real question is like a question you asked me, the hypothetical, and I think the public knows the answer. Would he have gotten rid of them had he been the mayor? And I think the answer is an overwhelming no. There's no way he would have. Why? How can I confidently make that statement? Well, number one, it's somebody's history. You know, when you're in government, especially the school department, which takes a tremendous amount of money to support, you're going to want to continue to intake and feed that fire, that furnace. How do you do that? More money. Where does the money in Fall River come from? The taxpayers. Unless you're like this administration, the Correia administration, that has found alternative revenue streams. What are those revenue streams? Cannabis. We are on target to make $2.4 million a year on cannabis. I have it here. If we raise the taxes in 2020 by 2.5%, all assessed property value, that brings in an additional $2.5 million. From one marijuana shop, we will achieve a revenue stream equal to raising taxes the maximum on every household. That's incredible. Now people say, oh, there's too many, all these questions, all nonsense, all like just distractions. The reality is that this administration had the foresight to make sure that we got one of the first in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts cannabis shops on the border of Rhode Island. So all those Rhode Islanders coming into Fall River are spending money here, and the Fall River is getting a piece of the action. That's forward thinking. You may not agree with cannabis, you may not ever use cannabis, but the reality is we had an opportunity to create a tremendous revenue stream. We took advantage of that. What else? We've got the transfer station. So we have an MOU. We're exploring options. Lewiston Street may not be the best place. We're exploring some options in the industrial park on some land that the Greater Fall River Development Corp has. And I think that that transfer station can, again, not keep trash here, because we don't want to keep trash in Fall River. That was already a mistake from the past with selling an airport and creating a landfill, and we all know the story there. But the reality is, a transfer station that just has our trash and other trash coming through it and recycling will pay us revenue again, will pay us host fees again. That's a revenue stream for the city to offset the future of trash increases, which the entire country is facing. So these alternative revenue streams are the ways that we can stabilize taxes, because I keep talking about stabilizing taxes, and eliminate fees. So the triple is, got rid of the purple bags, check. Got rid of the $120 fee, check. Gonna get rid of the stormwater fee. That's gonna happen if I'm reelected. We know how to do it. I explained some of the ways today. And then after that, the grand slam is to begin to stabilize taxes.
The cycle.
That's
You're
it.
for the cycle.
That's
You're
it.
looking for the cycle.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay. But as a follow-up question, first I want to clarify, the reason I went back to the purple bag process is because of the process.
Right.
And I think that the people don't want to see, you know, the 11th hour ramrod it down everybody's throat process
Absolutely.
on anything.
And I don't think that's happened with me at all.
But to get, and that, I wasn't alluding to that,
Sure.
but I was just, I mentioned that for you to say that. But you're talking about revenue streams, and it brings up something that I hear a lot in the community. It's well documented that economies are stimulated by discretionary cash of people.
Of course.
That is the bigger, even a bigger stimulus. And as I don't know if you watch our show regularly,
I
but
do sometimes.
we didn't have any problem with as many cannabis places as
Yeah.
because I believe in free enterprise, and I think that
Absolutely.
the market
Let the
will take
strongest
what it will
ones-
bear.
exactly,
That's
let
right.
the strongest ones
and
survive.
we've said this on the show. So to me, the more businesses, the better we have,
Correct.
and you know, the strong will survive and the weak will not.
That's right.
But the problem that I see, because obviously, you know, I'm a numbers guy with healthcare
Sure.
and retirement and stuff,
That's something
and
for
you
that.
got a lot of numbers there, and I love it. I love to see numbers like that. But and that's the thing, the hidden part of the economy that a lot of people don't understand, and many economists attribute the recovery from the Great Depression to the wage and price controls of the Second World War, and then having people after the war having a ton of discretionary cash
right.
to buy it. We all know the old Fall River that had every storefront was filled. People didn't have a lot of jobs,
Sure.
but we had people working. They had jobs. So, you know, I see a lot going on with trying to get more businesses in
Yeah.
cannabis, which I think is a great thing.
Well, that's just one industry. Let me
Right,
touch
but let
upon
me
something.
just add, let me
Sure.
just finish. What do you have a plan to fundamentally put because we have a lot of people in the city that are unemployable right now. They don't have the training. And we always talk about apprenticeship programs
Yeah.
and partnership programs.
I know
Do
where
you
you're
have
heading
a
on this one,
plan
yes.
to put people to work so we
Absolutely.
can have people that'll spend money in these places?
I'm glad
Not
you
only
went
on
down this.
cannabis, by the way. I
No,
want to
of
make that
course.
perfectly
I'm
clear.
glad you went down this path because this is really exciting. So this strikes at the core of economic development. So you're absolutely right. So for many years we had Mr. Fiola as the head of economic development in Fall River through a third party that was relatively an arm's length away from the city. So semi-secret, semi-public partnership, so to speak. So between 2000 and 2017, we paid Mr. Fiola $3,012,000 in salary. Okay, that's a lot of money. $3 million.
bad.
Okay, from 2000, the turn of the millennial, to 2017. So in that period of time, did wages go up? That is really the question. So what did he do as the chief executive of economic development in collaboration with the mayors that existed at that time to move the dial on jobs and, more importantly, discretionary income? What kind of money were people putting in their pocket that they could go to the shops and go and spend some money on, go to the restaurants and go spend some money on different food and things like that? Obviously, we know the answer to that. The number didn't increase by a lot. Why is that? So I think there's a few factors. Number one, I think politics in Fall River needed a shakeup, and I think I shook it up back in 2016. And I still feel like I'm shaking it up. That's number one. Number two, I think that the focus was too grandiose. We get all these acres from the state, and we create a biotechnology park. There's no biotechnology training programs in the area at that time. There still is no biotechnology company, with the exception of UMass's partnership up there, that is a biotech company. No NextGen or whatever else it may be that's located in that park. Instead, we got Amazon, which is one of the biggest names in the world, but those wages are still $15 and below an hour wages in many parts of the operation. That's still necessary. That's still a great win for the city. Still 2,000 jobs at its height during the Christmas season. But I think that what you're really getting at is, how do we get somebody a job where they can have the skill training in Fall River that's right for them, not have to go to Harvard or something crazy, but get trained right in Fall River and make a decent salary where they've got the extra money. Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah. As they do in Germany and have done for 50 years.
So I think the big one right now, and we are so close to an announcement, it's so exciting, is the wind energy sector. Now, we don't need to build the turbines here. We don't need to have them on our waterfront or in our city, although we do have one wind turbine in the industrial park. But what we're talking about is using the state pier, which has been an underutilized asset, some of the property along the waterfront where there are mills that were demolished recently, and the city pier even potentially, as well as Weaver's Cove, to do what I've created, which is the wind energy corridor. We are so close to striking a deal with one of the major players in the wind energy industry, which will allow Fall River to be the hub, or one of the hubs in the region, where jobs and job training will exist for the site, which is 22 nautical miles out of Fall River in the ocean next to Martha's Vineyard. What will that mean? That will mean 3,000 jobs for this project. It's a $1 billion project. That means that there will be underwater welders. Their average hourly rate is $90 an hour, okay? $100,000 a year job. Electricians, food catering, boat and marina activity, obviously, marina-related jobs. All these new jobs, engineers, architects, all this stuff. Why is that important? Because those are things that Fall River people are already doing and already good at. I think everybody knows that's watching at home. A plumber, an electrician, what else we have? A welder. Somebody in your family probably does that. If we've got a 10-year industry that's going to build a 10-year project for $1 billion, where those wages are going to be $90 an hour, and that's not even a joke, it's literally $90 an hour, you're going to have people that are going to go out for their week of work, because they usually stay out there for a week. They're going to come back to Fall River. They may buy a house, they may rent, or they're going to spend their money, and they're going to have extra money to spend. That's important. That's a real plan. That's real economic development, and tailoring it to the skills of the city. Can we one day have a biotech company here? Maybe. But it takes a lot of factors. It takes the train. It takes a diversified housing stock. How have we diversified the housing stock under this administration? We've added different types of apartments. Everybody wants to say market rate, market rate. I was the first one to say market rate was going to work on Alden Street, when other people, including Mr. Fiola and other members of the community, said it couldn't work on Alden Street. And now it is. It's working. But that's not what I just mean when I say we need diversified housing stock. When I was growing up, there were two kinds of homes in Fall River. It was either you lived in a 3-tenement or a 6-family in an apartment, or you were really well off, and could buy a single-family home. Those were the only two options, right? Today, or you lived the American dream and you moved to Somerset right after you made it. Like some people, like Mr. Coogan, right? So Mr. Coogan moved to Somerset. So he took his Fall River paycheck that we paid with our tax dollars for 20 years and lived in Somerset, and then purchased a house 3 years ago so that he could run for school committee and get rid of Meg Mayo Brown. That's the reality, right? So that happened recently. The reality today for housing in Fall River is we have a diversified housing stock. We have mill conversions of market rate housing. We have 55-plus housing, which unlocks old homes, right? So you have people. I was talking to a retired firefighter recently. He didn't retire recently, but I was speaking to him, and he said, I don't need my house anymore. Great house, nice little house, not a crazy house. He's like, I'm going to move into one of the mills down on Alden Street, 55-plus. I don't have any maintenance. I don't have to do the grass. I don't have to worry about anything. So what does that do? It recycles his home into the housing stock, and he's going into a new property, and he's somebody that still has a nice income that can go and spend some money. So you have housing stock for 55-plus. You have single-family homes, new single-family homes, and beautiful old Victorian homes. You have new mills that are market rate, attracting young professionals, millennials, some people want to call them empty nesters. You've got the first out-of-the-ground brand new construction happening on Duval Street near the train. When was the last time out-of-the-ground brand new construction apartment building was put up in Fall River that wasn't low income?
I can't
40
remember.
years,
and
50 years?
I've got a pretty good memory, and I can't remember.
So
the last
now
one, so.
you've got the elements of a Boston or Quincy type of atmosphere where people are willing to invest big dollars into projects, $20, $30 million projects. This is exciting stuff, and it's diversifying the housing stock. So it balances the housing stock. Keep in mind, my administration is the only administration in the last 2 decades to stop low-income housing. When Riverview Towers came up for renewal for another 40 years of the lowest type of housing where anyone the federal government wanted to put in Fall River could be put here, we said no and stopped it. We would not. We refused to sign it. And it was tough. It was hard. I went to the meetings, and I tried to make those people as comfortable as possible to explain that they would not be kicked out of their home, but that this was a ploy to renew the 40-year contract, which most of them would not be around after 40 years. They might move out. They might, a lot of them are elderly, that there were better options for them. And that was difficult, but it had to be done. And it was done under this administration. So when people want to talk about reducing the flow of low income, I'm the only mayor that's done that. And Mr. Coogan likes to say, oh, well, Jasiel's about I. I'm always saying I. The facts are the facts. When I try to work with the council and send them a letter to eliminate a burden on the taxpayers, that is me trying to be a we environment. And when they say, no, Mayor, we want you to keep the purple bags and burden the taxpayers, then it does turn into I. Because if they're not going to do it with me, it's something the public wants. We're still going to get it done. So there's plenty of we time, okay? I've got a great staff on the 6th floor and throughout all of Government Center and all of city properties, water department, school department, DCM, the parks department, great people working for the city. That is our team. Our team is not me and the city council. Our team is me and our city hall employees and our city employees that make the city a better place every day and work their butts off to do so.
I just got to interject.
Of course.
Because this is an extremely important piece of the puzzle to me. We talked about jobs, and I think a misconception a lot of people have is that you have to be trained to work in Fall River.
Right.
Rhode Island did the welders, and they worked at EB, and you can work outside the city. But the key to that is retaining these people once they get educated. Do you have any plans, and we're closing up, do you have any plans to have incentives for people who buy homes and commit to living in Fall River?
Of course we do, but we don't have the plan that Mr. Coogan talked about because that plan is illegal, according to the Department of Revenue. And number 2, his plan was to shift the burden. So if you owned a home, you've been paying your taxes, and you've been, been great, it's been great. What he wants to do is say somebody else that bought a new home, their taxes are going to be shifted to you. Because you can never escape taxes. You can only shift them.
Exactly, much like TIFs.
Much like TIFs, and I think he called it a TIF. So our program is the first-time homebuyer program. So, for example, to the federal government,
I'll let you quickly say goodbye. We will have you on again.
We will talk more.
We will talk
Thanks,
more.
everybody. September 17th And again on November 5th, I hope you vote for Jasiel Correia. Thank you. Good.